morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. It's Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. So today I'm going to talk about why we are already forgiven. Like why we are already forgiven for the unloving things that we do. And that's not to say that we are not held accountable for the things that we do, because we are. But we are already forgiven. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because I was having a conversation with someone on Facebook last week, and actually made a video about this Monday, but I didn't feel quite comfortable with it. So that's why I'm making it again. So, the reason why we are, well, it kind of started with it was regarding a post. Oh gosh, I sound like Elon Musk, all the stuttering. It started with a post where it was something about strong black women or something like that, and then this other person had commented saying that this person is white, and this other person, she said that her daughter wished that she was black, because I guess this one girl in school, or I think this one girl in school or something like that, or work, I can't remember which one it was, and I think it was in school, because this girl seemed so confident and strong, and so, which was a complete opposite of how she viewed her mother. And so, whenever you have a child who doesn't accept themselves for who they are and what they are, you oftentimes feel you have failed as a parent. And this is with anything. It doesn't matter whether it's race, it could be looks, it could be, body style, it could be regular fashion style, it could be all kinds of things that a child will just reject of themselves. And but in this case, and in many cases, children reject their parents, and for many different reasons. They don't want to end up like, a child is able to see their parents for who they are, rather than the parents seeing themselves for who they are, because we have the self-denial. We have the things that we are... Hold on a second. We have the things that... I don't think I need air, but... We have the things that we... I guess they could say, just like the child is rejecting something of themselves, the parent is also rejecting something of themselves. So, it's happening. It's just happening all over the place. But anyway... a parent will feel like it's their fault, like they are the cause of why their child is denying who they are. But that's not actually what I'm talking about, or the topic of this video. The topic of this video is basically the guilt and the shame that we feel, and why it's unnecessary. And this goes for any guilt and any shame. Whether you do something unknowingly that's unloving, or you do something knowingly that is unloving, we are already forgiven. And there is no need to guilt ourselves or to shame ourselves. And I guess one would have to understand why we would guilt and shame ourselves, because we feel we have done something wrong to someone else or to ourselves. We feel that we have either inflicted pain by our actions, or we have inflicted pain by our inactions. We have allowed ourselves to be hurt. We have allowed our children or our loved ones to be hurt. So there's a lot of reasons why someone would carry guilt and shame. And some people actually carry guilt and shame on top of the guilt and shame, because they feel guilt and shame. And so, this is something that's very common with every single person on the planet. There isn't anyone who is removed from this, and there's reasons why. But this is actually the reason why we are already forgiven we're not judged by the Creator whatsoever, because the Creator understands why we are taking the actions that we are taking. Now, we may not be aware as to why we're doing what we're doing. And if we're in complete denial of ourselves, our actions, and the universal laws that are in place that we have violated, that is causing our pain, we may not fully understand that. And even if we do fully understand that, that doesn't mean that we can stop what we're doing just like that at the drop of a dime. That doesn't mean that, because there's a lot of things that I know that I can't get over yet because they're emotional injuries, and that's the part right there. The Creator is aware of the emotional injuries that are within us, and the Creator already knows how we got those injuries. The Creator knows that we didn't go and reach and put them inside of our soul. The Creator knows, due to the system that He has created, and there's many reasons why it was created that way, the Creator is not going to penalize you for the things that you are doing that you had no control over. So if a child slaps, if a child slaps another child in the face, the child is not held accountable for that, because, well, no, the child is not held accountable for that because the child does not know what it's doing. Here's the thing. We're not really held accountable for the things that we do if we're unaware that we're doing it. However, as soon as we become aware of this good-bad thing, whether we understand it or not, we are aware of it. And we are aware that doing anything that is causing pain to someone else is bad. We understand that as a child. We learn that as a child. But as we become a certain age, we are held accountable and we are responsible for our actions, whether we fully understand them or not, because we understand the basics. And we understand that when someone slaps us in our face, we don't like it. So we have a clear understanding as to what our actions will cause, or the effect our actions will cause when we carry out that act. And so, but we are still forgiven, because the reason why those things are even happening is because of the unloving things that have been transferred to our soul. So there's no reason to hold guilt, because most things that we do, especially as parents, because most parents don't know how to handle the situation. One, because they don't know the soul, they don't understand the soul, they don't understand the emotional injuries, they don't understand that the emotional injuries are causing what's going on. They just don't understand. They don't understand the universal laws. They don't understand that they're breaking the laws. They don't understand what the law of compensation is. They don't understand these things. And when you're in the moment, in a degraded state, how can you figure anything out, especially when you're so involved in your emotions, so affected by your emotions that were given, the emotional injuries, I should say, that were given to you at conception. At conception. So how are you supposed to know what to do when you were given all this junk from your parents in the first place? You're responsible, you're accountable for your actions as an adult, as a being, an aware being, but you're also forgiven. And so this is why we have the power to forgive ourselves, and we can also ask for forgiveness. Now here's the thing, we can forgive ourselves and release the pain that we have inflicted upon ourselves through regular release, by releasing the pain, crying, or we can, well, we still have to cry, and that would take actually a long time. That takes a long time, because you have to identify all the emotional injuries and release all of them. And you have to understand that we have generations and generations and generations of emotional injuries. However, if you are willing, if you believe that this is possible, and it is, if you're willing to ask the Creator for forgiveness and feel remorse, this is repentance, then if you repent being remorseful and ask for forgiveness, it's already done. And so the Creator can remove the emotional injury, the original emotional injury, just like that. And most people aren't willing to do that. I haven't even been willing to do that, because I'm just an independent, hard-headed guy who wants to do everything and figure it out on his own. And so it's going to take a long time until I get to a point where I don't want to do that anymore. But I haven't gotten to that point. And most people are going to be just like me, how I'm doing it. Like, I just want to do it. I want to figure it out on my own, release it on my own, and I'll get frustrated over and over and over and over again. But I really don't get frustrated, because it's either I'm trying or I'm not. There isn't any of this. For me, it's not, I'm released, I've released, and how come nothing's changing? Like, I already know if I'm not engaging in something, and I'm not trying to force something into happening that I know can't happen, because I understand that if I try to force it, it's not going to happen. You can't force this stuff. You have to allow the soul to feel whatever it's feeling and allow it to come up and come out. That's it. But anyway, this whole shame and guilt thing, there really isn't any place for it. And it really prevents you from progressing. It prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from actually making different decisions with your life, because you're so caught up in the guilt and the shame. And you can't improve yourself. And so the damage that you feel you've done to your child, that can't improve, because you're still stuck on, oh my gosh, I hurt my child and I don't want to do it again. And you just take a step back instead of being more involved with your child. The thing is, once you release it, you can be more involved with your child. You can not correct things, but you can interact in a more loving way, which is the way that you probably wish you would have in the beginning. So this guilt and shame really hold us back from all kinds of things. But most of all, progression. Progression is what allows you to live in a different manner, to feel in a different way, to accept things, to accept the truth of what is, to actually see the pain, the cause of the pain, and how to help your child get out of it. Because when you're in guilt and shame mode, you don't help your child to get out of it, because you're still in it. And you can't help someone get out of something that you're still in. It's very difficult for a drug addict to tell another drug addict to stop using drugs. It's very difficult, because you're not in the place to say, hey, stop doing this. You're just not in the place. But if you have changed and you have a better understanding as to why you did it, now you can help your child understand why they're doing what they're doing, or they're going through what they're going through. And the thing is, we are a product of our parent. So they are a product of you, and you are a product of your parent. So you know exactly why your child, or what your child is going through and why. But if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't release the, I see, we're going to have a little problem. No, we're not. Just get on over. Get on over. Get on over. So, yeah, guilt and shame. And it doesn't matter what it is. You can feel shameful that something has happened to you. And the thing is, if it happened, it happened. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's already done. The most you can do about it is understand why. Well, actually, that's not the most. The most you can do about it is release the emotional injury, meaning feel how it feels to have what happened to you. Whether it's cancer, whether it's any kind of illness, whether it's a loss of job, a loss of a loved one, just feel the pain of that and allow it to come out. And that automatically brings up other things. Alright, you keep on going. That's a cop right in front of me, y'all. People not knowing, speeding, doing all, see, these unmarked vehicles, I tell you. Yeah, they figured that one out real quick. They stopped trying to pass them. Cray. It doesn't, if you start to release an emotional injury and you're into it, it's going to be attached to other things. Other things are going to come up, and it's going to naturally come up. And this is the important part. Anytime you have a release, anytime you're crying about something for whatever reason, it will generally start out with something that is in the moment, but it will also incorporate other things from your past. And that's the way it's supposed to happen. This is why it's not a good idea to really try to force or pick and choose what you want to release. I have a friend who's trying to do this. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work. But they can keep trying to find out and pinpoint what it is and what happened. No, just use whatever's coming to you in the moment. That's the law of attraction. The law of attraction knows exactly what needs to be released in the order it needs to be released in. Sure, you can pick and choose. You're using your willpower. But I'm telling you, the soul knows, the universe knows, the creator knows. It's designed everything to work perfectly in harmony if you just let it work. But if we fight against it, we're trying to create our own universe, trying to create our own reality. And yeah, we have the right to do that. But that doesn't mean that we're always going to get the results that we want. We may be able to get the results that we get, but that doesn't mean we're going to get the results that we want. And so this is important because we fight ourselves so much. We fight ourselves so much. It is so cold outside because I don't even have the air on. It's coming in cold. I need some chips. I need some chips to put my lips on. All right. So, yeah, shame and guilt is it's a pointless thing. And the thing about shame and guilt is it's unloving to ourselves. And that also prevents us from progressing because we are holding ourselves back by feeling this guilt, by holding this guilt, by holding this shame, because guilt and shame is not a loving thing. And we're holding on to it. We're holding on to it. And there's no reason to. All we need to do is let it go. Forgive ourselves for the things that have happened. Or forgive ourselves for the things that we have done. Forgive ourselves for allowing it to happen. Forgiving ourselves because we understand that what is happening to me, a lot of it didn't even have anything to do with me. But because my parents were not as smart as they thought they were, they didn't even think about emotional injuries. They didn't think about releasing their pain and anger. They didn't think about that. And so they held on to it, and now you got it. And so, that's why I'm saying it's like we're already forgiven because the Creator knows we were given this stuff in the beginning. And you can't, if you're a loving person, you're not going to blame someone for, honestly, look, if you're a loving person, you're not going to blame the victim who got hit by the person who hit them. You're not going to do that. Because you know that they didn't create that pain. They didn't inflict that pain upon themselves, but they did inflict that pain upon themselves because it's in the soul. I don't know what you guys are trying to do, and you're trying to come over, and it's just you're doing too much. No. They're not even trying to come over. I'm going to here, and you can get your headlight fixed like a motorcycle. See, I'm already gonna be late. 7:02. Anyway, so yeah, we're already forgiven. The Creator already forgives us for the things that we do because of this. Because he was doing some shit he wasn't supposed to do. Stupid. Not on my watch, Bradley. Not on my watch. That stuff came in my car. It's brake asbestos or whatever that shit is I'm breathing in right now. Anyway, it's very unpleasant. Hold on a sec. And clearly that truck does not have anti-lock brakes. His wheel was twisted and all that screeching. Anyway. So, even that, if that person would have hurt someone, he's already forgiven. He is already forgiven. He is already forgiven. This is why we incur karma when we blame, when we hold someone in contempt, when we think that they should pay for what they've done. That's why we incur karma, because not even the Creator is blaming. And we think that we have the power and the ability to hold someone else in contempt. But that's only because, and this is the thing, even you're forgiven for that. Even you're forgiven for that. Because the Creator knows that we're in a flawed state. And so once you know that you're in a flawed state, and once you know that if you're in a flawed state, that means there's work that needs to be done. And I understand, like, I recognize there's work that needs to be done in myself. I recognize that there's work that needs to be done in other people. But we have to recognize this. We have to recognize this. Because if we don't recognize this, there's no way that we can truly heal ourselves. It's an impossible task. Impossible task. Because we're not looking at... See, the thing is, if we don't understand that we are flawed, if we don't understand that our soul is degraded, then there's nothing within us to say, hey, you know what? I need to be more mindful of what's going on. I need to be more mindful as to why I'm carrying out these actions. I need to be more mindful of the law of attraction events that cause me pain. I need to be aware of all these different things that come into my experience that are not pleasing. Like, that's what this does. This acceptance of being a degraded soul allows you to see things that are within us, or you, or anybody else, that needs to be corrected. But if we keep denying and say, we're just imperfect people, and, I bring the Jehovah's Witnesses back up because this is their get out of jail free card, when it's really not a get out of jail free card, it's really sending yourself to jail. But they don't understand that. But they claim all the time, if they make a mistake, they're like, well, we're not perfect. We're flawed beings. We're not perfect. We're not perfect, so it's okay. And it's not okay. It's not okay. It never was okay. But if that's the way you want to live your life, that is a choice that you have. Now those two things, it's so important to understand. That we either are going to accept that we are a degraded soul, and we need help, meaning we need work on ourselves to improve our soul condition if we want to be better people. Because the only person who improves themselves knows that they can achieve something greater. But anyone who doesn't want to improve themselves will use this cop-out thing where they say, well, we're just imperfect. We're just man. We can't know everything. And all of those things aren't true. You can know so much, but the only way you're going to learn more, have more information, is you don't have all the answers. But not just accepting you don't have all the answers. At the same time, in that same breath, you're saying you don't have all the answers. You also have to understand and believe that there are answers out there to be had. So though we are degraded, though we are broken, though we are flawed, there are ways to improve ourselves. But first, you have to be humble enough to accept that truth. And once you accept that truth, you will find that other truths will come to you. You will find that other truths will come to you. I was looking at, this morning, it was these flat earthers. And if you're a flat earther, I don't mean to offend you. But if I do, I do. That's your business. But I was listening to it, and this lady went before the school board. I don't know which school board it was, but she did. And she had a big old... what do you call those things? I forget what you call those things. We used to do them in school, presentation boards. We have all this information on a big old board. Anyway, she had one of those, and she was presenting to the board that the schools are presenting false information, and she had all her little things about the flat earth and the map that the government uses and the UN uses, and what's in the map and what's in the books or whatever, and the lines and the this and the that. And she was saying, she's saying everything is flat, and the water in your bathtub is flat, and if you curve, then it would never hold the water. And so she was, making her claims based on this. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I've heard them say it. I heard them talk about gravity. And I was like, gravity. I was just thinking about gravity. I was like, I hear her talking about gravity. And I was like, what creates gravity? And so I Googled it, gravity. And I was like, okay, so let's Google gravity, Bradley. So I go grab it. You look it up on YouTube, and I watch, I think, 2 or 3 videos about gravity and what we know about gravity, what scientists knows about gravity, and how the bigger the mass, the bigger or the greater the gravitational pull. And then I was looking at, I was like, okay. And then I thought, all right. So then I looked at another video, and it was about a black hole and how scientists have noticed that when there's light that reaches a big gravitational pull, or a big gravity, or a big mass that has a huge gravitational pull, I should say, the light curves. And I was like, okay. But the thing is, out of all the videos that I watched, nobody knows why it's created. All they understand is that when there's a big mass, there's a greater gravitational pull. But nobody knows why it happens. Nobody knows why it happens. And it's difficult to recreate gravity because I don't know why they can't do it. All I know is that they can't do it. Now, they can create magnetism, which can act like gravity, or simulate something close to gravity, but it doesn't work on things that are not magnetized. For instance, this guy was trying to use a cat with the magnet. It doesn't work. But if you use iron, if you use other certain metals, it works. Some metals don't work. So you can't really prove where this comes from. You can't really recreate it. All you know is that the bigger the mass, the greater the gravitational pull. That's it. And so you hear these flat earthers saying all of these different things to prove their point, but they're leaving out one crucial thing. The thing that they're using, nobody understands. The thing that they're using to prove their point, nobody understands. And because everything on this planet is affected by gravity, both metal and non-metal, or both metallic and not metallic, everything's still affected. So there's no way you can prove your point because everything that you use is affected by gravity. You would have to go on a complete different planet, but then the gravity's going to be different. So whatever you're trying to prove about Earth, it has to be about Earth. I don't see how you can prove it on a different planet because it's a different mass. It has different components to it. Like the moon. The moon has gravity, but it's small. It's very insignificant in terms of the gravitational pull here on Earth. Whereas other planets will probably have a greater gravitational pull. But anyway, my point is, if you don't have truth, if you're not willing to accept certain things, then you can't have other truths. You just can't. You have to accept certain truths in order to get other truths, because you need truth to build, or I should say, in order to get truth, you have to have truth as a foundation for other truth to stand on it. If you don't, you're creating a falsehood, and those falsehood always leads to dead ends. They can't fit together like a Lego. They have to be separate for whatever reason. And the thing is, each time you have a separate thing, you have to have a different explanation for it. And you're not always going to get one. But with truth, you'll always get one. You will always get one. There are things upon this planet that are easy to be explained, but you have to have it based on the foundation of truth. And that's why I like talking about the soul, because when you know the universal laws, when you know the truth of how the soul operates, then you can predict anything. And I'm still going to be late. I'm not fighting traffic today. When you have truth, it will always, the next thing will always come to you to build upon it. And like anything that we know truth about, we can predict. That's the only way we can predict things, is if we know the truth, because it's going to happen the same way over and over. And there's a reason why that is. Like just that alone, like all these scientific things, or how we can prove certain things, there's a reason why we can prove them, because there's a formula. And that formula is based on something that we know will happen again and again and again and again and again. You wouldn't want to use a formula if you know it doesn't produce the same results over and over and over again. At that point, you would know it's flawed. But if you know the truth, then you know that the formula is true and you can use it to predict certain things. It's the same thing with the soul. Like, there's a reason why you can predict, or I can predict, that someone's going to have a certain experience based on their soul condition. Well, that's only because I understand the soul, what's in the soul, and I also understand the universal laws that respond to the soul. So if I know the truth of the universal laws, and I know the truth of the soul, and I know why certain things happen, I can predict that it will happen again, and again, and again, and again. And I tell people that all the time. When they say, oh, this is happening, I just say, well, it's going to happen again. And they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, because I know. Because I know the truth of the universe, meaning I know the truth of the universal laws, not all of them, but some of them. And I know what you're going through, and I know the reason why that was even created. And it was created because of a formula, because of laws that are in place. That's how I know. And I know that you're not changing, and I know you're not going to change, and your frustration is evident of that. That's clear. If you're angry and something is happening and you're still angry, it's going to happen again because you haven't changed anything in your soul for it to change. I don't have to be a freaking psychic to figure that out. I don't even have to be a scientist to figure that out. I just need to hold the truth. And that's why it's so important to know the truth. If you want to figure out, if you want to know about people, just know the truth. If you want to know about yourself, know the truth. But if you want to deny, good luck. Because you're going to be there trying to figure it out, and you won't be able to figure it out. You won't understand why it keeps happening, which is why people say, I don't know why this keeps happening. Oh my gosh, let me get some of this coffee. That is entirely too sweet. I had a pumpkin latte from yesterday, and I didn't finish it, so I heated it up. But it was too sweet. Yeah. Man. Oh, I tell you. All of our issues are repeated over and over and over again. Because we, including myself, do not change the actual thing that causes these events to manifest. We don't. And so they keep repeating. Like, I know this is going to happen. Whatever I'm going through, it's going to happen again until I release it. It just is. And the thing is, I have the free will to choose when I want to deal with it, as does everyone else. And everyone else uses that free will to deny it. And they have that right. Just like I have that right. But I know I never say, ever, I say, I wonder why this keeps happening. I actually know why it's happening. To myself. Dang it. You know what? I'm just gonna go this way. Probably not a good idea, but at this point I'm already late, so does it really matter? I don't know. We'll see. Nope, it made it worse. Oh well. Deal with it, Bradley. Deal with it. And I got a yellow light. Boo. My friend used to say that all the time. Boo. Anyway, so yeah. At some point, even with our children, if you have them, at some point you have to leave that alone. You have to leave that alone. And the thing is, once you start releasing some of the things that are within you, yeah, that coffee was entirely too sweet. I'm already getting sleepy after that one sip. If we leave the child alone and we work on ourselves, a lot of the emotional injuries that we transfer to them disappear. They vanish. There's no reason for it to be in them because you gave it to them. Like, you're the link within, you're the link to the emotional injuries that are within them. And like all things are linked. As you as a parent release your emotional injuries, the ones that you gave to your children are also released. So as you work on yourself, and this is the thing, as you work on yourself, you'll find that the interaction with your children will change. This is a loving thing, because as you heal yourself, you heal your child. But as you don't heal yourself, and you try to help your child heal themselves, it's going to be very difficult. Because number one, they're not going to understand why they even have what they have within them, or why they feel the way that they feel. Especially if they haven't had any experience to have an understanding as to why it's even present. And the Creator creates it this way. Like, if you truly love yourself and you fix yourself, you automatically fix those who you have affected. And you may not believe it, but if you try it, you'll see that the interaction with your child or loved one, whoever, that will change. That will automatically change. Like, I had like I told you, I don't know, yeah, I think I told you guys. Like, I don't really talk to my family. My little brother is we don't really talk that much. But I was thinking about my little brother not too long ago, and I tried to call him, but I couldn't because his phone number, didn't work, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And so this was like a month ago, and so anyway, he called me last night. And I guess I was on his mind, he was on my mind. But I kept thinking about him and thinking about him and thinking about him. And I was like, well, I'm not going to panic because I know I can't contact him. So there's nothing I can do. And so I don't know what's going on with him, so I'm not going to think the worst. And so I didn't. I just figured, hey, he's doing his thing. And the lack of communication that we have, for whatever reason, is supposed to happen. Because he's a grown man now. Like, I think he's 30. And he has his own life to live. That's it. And he doesn't need me to be worried about him. The thing is, my worry isn't going to help him. My worry is going to be projected towards him. And he'll feel that. But that's not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to worry, because I know if I'm worried about someone, it's automatically projected towards them. And so this is something that you parents are probably going to have to learn, is that when you worry about your child feels that worry. Your child feels that concern. Your child feels that pull, like I can't get away, and they're not able to live their life because of that pull. So anyway, he called me yesterday, but he called me in a panic. I mean, a panic. And he finally, I guess he didn't have my number. He was trying to find my number. He kept dialing a different number, and he was like, he told me he was, oh my God, he goes, I'm so glad I got a hold of you. And I'm thinking, what's going on? I was ready for some bad news. I'm like, what's going on, And he said, I've been trying to call you and get in contact with you, and the people I was calling, I was text messaging them, and I was asking them, how long have you had this number? Because he was certain that the number that he was calling was my number. And he wasn't sure, and so there was a lot of uncertainty around that. And so he needed this question to be answered, whether, or as to how long they had the number, because if he had the number right and someone barely got this number, then he would have known that, okay, the reason why I can't get in contact with my brother is because he has a different number and now someone else has his number. Now that would have brought him a sense of comfort, but that would have been a self-created, I guess, justification to not be in panic anymore, because he was feeling the panic, but he didn't want to feel the panic, and so he was trying to create a reason as to why he couldn't get a hold of me. And because whether or not the number is changed or not changed, the fact is he couldn't get a hold of me, so he needed a reason to feel like, okay, I can relax. It's not for any other reason other than he changed his number. Because if I had the number was still the same, and it wasn't working, then he was thinking something happened to me. And this is what I'm saying. Like, he called in a panic. But anyway, he called and he talked about himself, and he was working, and he gave me information about our other brother, and he's working or whatever, and then everything seemed fine. Like, everything seemed fine. Like, everything was going fine. There wasn't any bad news or anything like that. He seemed like he's, like, growing into himself. Like, he's not the child anymore. And he's just understanding that he has to do for himself, which is something completely different, than his previous view of how life is to be lived. But the thing, and I understand why he had that feeling in the past of do for me, because our mother died when he was 12. And so he was right dead smack in the middle of mom does for me, mom takes care of me, to nobody's taking care of me. And that's a huge shock. So I understand why he was, it took him so long to get out of that. But he had to go through a lot of tears in order to get to where he is. And he may not see it, but he's in a better place. He's in a better place now than he was before. Absolutely. He's working, for goodness sakes. There was a time he wasn't doing anything. And here's the thing, this is the reason why I bring this up. I have changed. I have changed my feelings, my beliefs about things that are associated with my brother, that are associated with my family. And so those things don't come to me anymore. And some of those things I've healed. And that means that my law of attraction is going to be different. And that also means that if I want a relationship with my brother, which I do, and if my brother wants a relationship with me, which he does, that means both of us are going to change in order for that to happen. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen naturally. My brother doesn't know about the emotional injuries that he had been releasing all this time. He doesn't know that. He just knows that he was just feeling the pain. He was just releasing it. And so the consequence of releasing all of that is that you have a different experience, a better experience. His family, his interaction with his family, his interaction with me, completely different. Completely different. He released, I released and changed some things, and that's it. And, my mother could be releasing some things too. If she's been buzzing around and listening to some of the things that I've been saying, if she's willing to release some of the things. And here's the thing. When our parents die and we are feeling a certain kind of way, they actually see everything. They see the pain, they see the emotions. And so my mother could be doing things in the spirit world in terms of releasing things that's causing me to change, that's causing me to have a different experience because of her emotional injuries that she is taking care of. Because some of the things, I can tell you, are changing in my life and I'm not even doing anything. They're just happening. And for a while I was trying to figure that out. I was like, my mother must be buzzing around. But if I know my mother, she did care. She did have a concern. She didn't know how to do what she thought she was doing. She made her mistakes. But in the spirit world, you're able to see so much more. And the thing is, here's how I know my mother cared. Because when my mother died, when she was, it was a near-death experience actually, but when she had that experience, we were in a car accident together when I was 20 years old, I think 20 years old, because she died when I was 21, so maybe 19, one of those two, maybe 19. I don't know how old I was. Anyway, it was around that time. It was around 19, because that's when I bought my first car. And that's when we got in a car accident. So, she died right before my eyes. Like, she was, or had a near-death experience, I should say. So she was in that transitional stage of death. And I kept saying, Mom, and so her eyes were wide open. I've said this story before, but her eyes were wide open, and she wasn't breathing, and there was really no life in her. The silver cord was obviously still connected. I didn't know anything about the silver cord before, but to me, she was dead. And so I kept saying mom because I wasn't willing to accept that. I wasn't willing to accept that she was gone. And so I kept saying mom. I kept calling for her, hoping that she would come around. As you see in movies all the time, you know, they shake them and they're like, oh, you're with us still, you know. So that's why I kept calling. I was like, no, I'm not accepting this. And so I didn't accept it. And so hold on a second. Who's this car? So I was calling her name, and then right before my eyes, she took a breath, and she started breathing again. And they were sporadic, but they were present, and they got, you know, more closer and more deeper. And that I saw life come back into the physical body. I saw life come into the physical body, and that was so amazing. Now, you know, making this video, I'm like, that was so amazing. I saw life come back into the body. It wasn't like she was sleeping, because when we're sleeping, we're still breathing. There's still life in the body. But I saw life come back into the body from not being there. And that was amazing. That was really cool. But in the moment, it didn't seem cool. It was terrifying. But later on, as she, you know, she was in recovery and, you know, getting better, and she spoke to me about it, and she said she heard me calling her. And her mother was there, so my grandmother was there to greet her, as many of our loved ones are there to greet us when we pass or when we transition. And they were saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And they were telling her it's okay, and they were saying to go with them. It's okay, you can come, it's okay. And they were ready for her, but she, at the same time, she heard me calling her name. And she told her mom, I can't leave my boys yet. They still need me. And so I know for a fact that my mother loved us, but that doesn't change the fact that she did things that harmed us. But that also doesn't change the fact that she loved us. And she had love. I can't say that she loved us, because when you harm someone, you're not loving someone. But she had love for us, and she was doing the best that she possibly could, as does most parents. As actually almost all parents do the best that they could. And some parents can't do anything at all. They're just so degraded, they can't even keep their child. They have to let it go. Because they can't. That is the best that they can do. It's to give the child to someone else. That is the best that they can do. And so when we see parents give up their children, we say, oh, you're an unfit mother. You know, actually that's the most loving thing that they can do. Because number one, they allowed the child to still live. They didn't abort the child. They allowed the child to live. They feel the pain of letting the child go sometimes. And they let the child go to someone else. Because that's the best that they can do in the moment. They can't take care of the child, because most parents who do it can't take care of themselves. Whether you're a homeless person on the street, you're a drug addict, or you know, you can't live with the pain and the ridicule of your family, you know, talking about how you're a slut or a tramp or whatever, or you're unfit, or it doesn't matter what it is, but they're doing whatever they think they can do, the best that they can do in the moment, given their situation. Always given their situation. So we I think I'm gonna get over here. Anyway, how do I get on to that? Anyway, the emotional injuries. So yeah, I think my mom is actually dealing with some things, because my life is changing, and there's a lot of things that I haven't really done. Like, I haven't released a whole bunch of different things, but I've noticed certain things regarding the law of attraction of those events that I used to have are changing. And I'm not quite sure, but what I do know is that if any of my parents are releasing anything, then it affects me. It affects my clarity. It affects the truth that there's just less to contend with, I should say. And so truth is able to come quicker in a more rapid way, and I'm willing to accept the truth. So, I mean, a lot of things are happening. Because, people say, "Oh, well, I did it myself." We never do anything by ourselves. We have our guides, we have our guardians, we have our parents, we have so many different people around us who play a role. People that we listen to on the internet, on YouTube or whatever. We have so many things around us that help change and mold and shape our energy, and we don't really recognize it. We think, oh, it's too hard, or they make progress and they think that they're the only one that's responsible for their progress, and so many different things are taking place and we don't give credit. And number one, not everyone knows where to give credit to. Like, where should we focus this credit? Where should we just say, where do we focus our thank yous? Just say thank you. Because though we may not know who's doing it, if we recognize that something is happening outside of us, or there's help, and we say thank you, they already know that they were responsible for it. And so even though we may not consciously know, if we recognize it and we feel it at a soul level, they already know. They already know. It's like if there's a homeless man, all right, and he's sleeping, and you put a bag of McDonald's food right next to him, and you walk away and you're sitting in your car, and he wakes up and he sees that sitting there, and he says, "Oh my God, thank you." And you look and you see the appreciation. You know that was for you. You know that was for you. He didn't need to project it towards you. He already knows. And so this is the same thing in the spirit world. So when you receive something, when you receive help, when you receive some type of advice or clarity, say thank you. If you feel it, say it. The person who did it is going to receive that. They already know. They already know. And so the thing is, generally people who do things from the heart, who operate from the soul, they don't need that individualized recognition. That's not something that they need. It's a person who's flawed and doesn't have it within themselves. They need the validation. They need that something to be recognized for. They need that. But a person who already has self-worth, a person who values themselves, a person who loves themselves, and they want to just share just because, they don't require that. They don't even need it. And a lot of times it's like, oh, it's no big deal. I just, wanted to do it. They're not looking for anything. They're not looking for anything at all. Oh, good. Because I need to get over too. And I'm going to get over up here. Anyway, so yeah, what else? I think that's it. So there's no reason to hold shame or hold guilt, because we're already forgiven by the Creator. The only thing that needs to happen next is that you need to forgive yourself. And the thing is, once you do, you won't hold the shame or the guilt. And that's why you're holding the shame and the guilt, because you're not. You're not forgiving yourself. And if you're not forgiving yourself, you're not loving yourself. See, God already loves you, which is why He's already forgiven you. Before it even happened. That's why they say, you're already forgiven. It's already done. But the thing is, God never held you in contempt in the first place. And the proof of that is, here's the proof of that. The proof of that. Because the proof is in the pudding. The proof of that is, once you stop holding yourself in contempt, once you stop holding the guilt and the shame, and you forgive yourself, in that moment your pain stops. That is a proof right there. that you are holding yourself in contempt. Not God, not the creator, not source energy, not the universe, none of that. You're doing it. So you can't say that, God is punishing you or harming you. You're doing it. You're doing it yourself. It's all you, boo-boo. It's all you. Try it. Try forgiving yourself. Forgive yourself for the thing that you've done that's causing the guilt. And then forgive yourself because you have to. You have to also forgive yourself for the contempt that you've held yourself in. So that guilt and shame, that's also an unloving thing, a secondary unloving thing that you engaged in. And so you have to release that one too. You have to forgive yourself for what you've done to the other person. Forgive yourself for harming them. Then you have to forgive yourself for harming yourself via the shame and the guilt. All right? There you have it. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will talk to you guys later. All right. Bye now.